BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast. Phil Goodlad here with you. All the news, the views, the analysis, everything you need from our beautiful game on Friday the 3rd of October. Although this morning, after a European night, it doesn't feel all that beautiful.
It's going to break to Martinez, blocked by Scales, but it's into the back of the net by Martinez, the substitute. Diego Martinez has surely won it for Braga.
We're round up what the results mean for Celtic, for Rangers and for Aberdeen after all three lost in European competition. And then what a weekend of domestic action we've got to look forward to.
Grant, he scores! Hearts level! George Grant smashes it home into the roof of the net. Gale, goal! 6 yards out, Gale snaps home!
Two undefeated sides contesting a mouth-watering Edinburgh derby. And Aberdeen's search for a league win goes on.
We know, I know we're coming back to the start of the season. Everybody knows that, it's no secret. But we also have to be strong in our conviction that we can turn things around.
We'll guide you through the weekend's highlights, weather permitting, of course.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sport Scotland.
Robbie Neilson, the former Hearts and Dundee United manager, has joined us to give us an insight into whether Scottish football really is as bad as we all may be feeling this morning. Robbie, morning to you.
Morning, Phil.
Tell me where you are talking to us from.
I'm over in Belgium, obviously. I'm currently at Lommel, so I live in a place called Hassel. So we have a game tonight, so just get prepared for that.
And before I go any further, the weather in Hassel this morning?
It's a little bit overcast, but it's nice and not windy like it is in Scotland, put it that way. So yes. Not that I need to worry about it in my hair, Phil.
Well, listen, in the good old days, this nation of ours would have rallied against over-exaggeration of winds, and we wouldn't have even known what a storm was. And now, Moira Gordon, we have names for them, and Amy is blowing in this weekend. It could affect the football, but at the moment, we're not hearing any disruption, although it was an ill wind that blew in last night for our sides in Europe. Moira, morning to you.
Good morning. I'm just laughing at the idea that Robbie escaped the hassle of Scottish football for a hassle across there. There's a few other guys might fancy that now after last night.
Yeah, well, let's get into the hassle. I have here a shambolic display, but that could be either Celtic or Rangers. I mean, it's bizarre that actually Aberdeen only come out with a bit of credit. An Aberdeen team that's actually celebrating because they've scored a goal for the first time in 580 minutes. But let's start at Celtic Park, and let's start with the controversy of the night, which was Anacho's goal that was ruled out for a handball that the referee seems to have seen, but nobody else saw. Robbie, don't speak to me as a manager. Speak to me as somebody that saw that moment. It changes the game because Celtic could have been 1-1 and could have built momentum and then gone on, ifs, whats and maybes. But how big a moment is that for a team? Not just the joy of equalising, but then the almost the incredulity of the goal not being allowed, and the down then that creates, not just in the team but in the stadium.
Yeah, I think it's one of the many downsides of VAR is that we lose the enthusiasm and the atmosphere within the stadium. I think that at that point when Celtic get the goal and it's a great finish from Iniacho, the whole place is rocking, and that's what Celtic Park is. You know, when you go to stadiums like that and the fans get behind them, it's a very difficult place to play for opposition teams. And I think that just killed the whole atmosphere. And it was almost as if, you watched the game on the TV, as if there was a deflation and almost an acceptance of, here we go again. So I think it really killed the atmosphere and the momentum that Celtic were building, and, ultimately lost them the game.
And much is being made about Celtic being blunt up front in the last few weeks. Defending is not really something to write home about by the champions at the moment as well. I mean, that was another fault from Kasper Schmeichel last night. Yeah,
I think the difficulty in football is when you're not scoring goals, it puts a lot more pressure on a defensive unit. Celtic were scoring 3-4 goals a game. the defenders are actually a lot more relaxed and they actually play better because they know that there's not that risk of, if I make a mistake here, we could potentially lose the game. So I think the lack of goals up front is causing a problem in the defensive aspect because there's so much pressure on them to keep a clean sheet. And I think obviously the goal from Schmeichel was a disappointment from his point of view, but even the second goal, with a mix-up when the ball gets played off the player, it's a culmination of not being a threat up front and having to put extra pressure on defenders to keep clean sheets now.
Moira Gordon, Brendan Rodgers last night was speaking about it's up to him to try and find the solution to get more goals in the side. There's a stat doing the rounds this morning that says that last season, Brendan Rodgers mentioned this himself, Celtic scored the most goals in 54 years for a season for the club. This year, it's the first time in nearly 35 years that Celtic have gone this early in a campaign, having not scored in five games. And when you think back to the Celtic teams of the early 90s and the problems that they had, that stat in particular was one that caught the eye this morning for me.
No, definitely. It is an issue. And I mean, we talk about the start of this season, but towards the end of last season as well, I think since the January window, not replacing guys like Kyogo when Kuhn went off form a bit last year around about that time as well. He'd started the season in blistering form. So there was a lot of goals. There was a lot of people there. Jota came back in. There was opportunities there. They just haven't found a way to replace that. And I think for all that Celtic want to sweep this whole transfer market under the carpet and try and move on fresh, look ahead, it's going to keep rearing its head because they haven't replaced goal scorers. They haven't got proven guys that are going to do it week in, week out. And as Robbie said, that then affects your whole team, your whole style of playing, your mindset. You don't go out there thinking it's an inevitable Celtic win the way that they probably have for several seasons, the way they approach games. So I think it's going to continue being a bit of a problem, and it's one that is a headache for Brendan because, as he says, it's up to him to try and find something within that squad that'll compensate for that and make it work. But you're going to have to maybe rejig things throughout a whole squad. Other players are going to be affected by that just because you haven't replaced certain pieces of a jigsaw puzzle that was a pretty good jigsaw puzzle in place if you just found the right piece just to come back in and keep going. So I think it's going to continue being a bit of an issue.
I wonder if Celtic now as a club actually would have wanted the fans' silent protest to take place last night, because the noise of their own fans booing the team off the park at full time and at half time last night was quite surprising. I know that across the city at Rangers, and we'll get into that again when it comes to Russell Martin and the fans' anger towards that. But a Celtic team being booed off the park in a European match at home, that's quite unusual.
No, it is. It's like Celtic, as Robbie touched on earlier as well, Celtic Park, the noise, the atmosphere is a massive part of Celtic form, especially in Europe over the last few years. Teams come there, Celtic might be our underdogs at certain times. They use that sort of 12th man and having their own fans angry and booing. I don't think any player at any club particularly likes having their own fans booing or that kind of noise behind them. But it's not even just the negativity, it's the lack of positivity to drive them forward that then can be an issue. So I don't think fans understand just how much sometimes they can impact a game. And I think on a night like last night, the last thing they needed was their own fans booing. But I can understand why they were. It's not that, you're saying to them, don't be upset with the way things are going at the moment. But it does have an impact.
Braga winning 2-0 last night at Celtic Park. Robbie Neilson, Russell Martin in Rangers' 2-1 defeat across in Austria at Sturm Graz, speaking about the mentality of the players being an issue and about their defensive lapse. And then after the game, Max Aarons came out and he said that he was asked a question in a huddle with journalists afterwards about the impact that the fans' reaction to Martin and the team is having. And he says, yeah, it is having an effect. And I wonder whether the mentality problem that Russell Martin speaks of can now be seen to be fueling the issue that the fans have but also that the fans are fueling the problem with the mental. Do you see what I mean? It's like it's going hand in hand.
I think there's definitely a correlation between the two, and I think it when these situations occur, they start to spiral, and we're getting to that point now where the negativity towards the manager is definitely having an effect on the players. There's no doubt about that. And I think no matter how big the negativity is, it always does have that effect. But as I've been saying for a number of weeks, whenever we talk about this thing, the only way to turn that is to win football matches. So you can talk in the paper, you can talk in interviews, you can do team building exercises. Ultimately, it's about winning football matches, and Rangers have failed to do that so far this season. But they're getting to a little stage now where they've got an opportunity to do that. They get a game at the weekend that they would expect them to be winning, and if they can do that, then it can spiral the opposite way. Because as we know in football, it changes quickly. You get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wins on the spin, win an Old Firm game, everything's right as rain again. Will they be able to do that? That's the question, because I don't know if they've got the squad to win 6, 7, 8 in a row, but that's the only way they'll turn it.
How does it work, Robbie, sometimes when you look at mentality of a player, though, when he's talking about mentality, if they've got technique, they've got ability, or it's a tactical thing, you can tweak that. How much can a manager really affect the mentality of players? And when you're saying, they're in a bit of a hole at the moment, and the only way to turn that around is to win it. But if you're looking around your dressing room and they've not got that mentality, can they do that and dig themselves out?
That's where the skill of management comes in, because you're managing people, so you have to make a decision about what each player needs, individually and as a collective. And, some of them need more pressure put on them. Some of them need pressure taken off them. Some of them need different forms of motivation. So it's looking at each player individually and deciding what they need. And I think at the moment what it looks like from outside is that, Russell is taking as much pressure as he can on himself to try and get it away from the players. But I think at the moment it's coming back on the players as well now, because it's got to quite an extreme stage. So I think it's more of an individual thing and seeing what players need, because there will be some players in that dressing room that potentially are hiding away from the pressure and need a little bit more pressure on them, and vice versa. There might be some that are taking a lot and maybe need a little bit of a release. So I'm sure Russell's an experienced manager and will be thinking about all these things.
It's 5 wins in 16 games now as Rangers manager for Russell Martin. Moira, the interesting thing in all of this for me after a European disappointment for both Rangers and Celtic is that in seasons gone by, we would see that Celtic at home to Motherwell, Rangers travelling to the promoted side of a season in Falkirk, that you would almost see, they'll be able to right what went wrong in Europe by a comfortable 3 points. That's now for both sides this weekend, not a given. Falkirk flying, having come back up and will really fancy themselves at home to Rangers. Celtic won't want to face a really good-looking Motherwell side this season too. So almost the safety net in years gone by of the two big Scottish clubs being in Europe and maybe having a disappointing result, but then maybe trying to bounce back at the weekend. That's not happening this weekend.
No, definitely. And you look at the likes of Motherwell. Motherwell aren't going to be intimidated by going to Celtic Park. They're going to go with the style of play that's served them well so far this season. They're going to have a go. That defence is going to have to make sure it's stronger than it was last night, not give them any encouragement as they did last night. And you would always fancy that Motherwell team to be pushing for goals or getting goals. So Celtic are going to have to find a way to make sure they're scoring more than them as well. So it's not a gimme for Celtic. As you say, sometimes they would think it's a chance to right wrongs. But especially coming back from European competition, I've seen that with so many managers, so many teams. Coming back from a European night is draining, and having to go again so soon and try and pick it up. If you've got a much better team, you can maybe handle that. But Celtic have shown this season they're not head and shoulders above every team there. So it's going to be a sticky game. And again, if fans aren't happy, that then adds into it as well. And it'll be the same Rangers. They went to Livingston last week. They got their win, but they're going to be expected by fans to get their second win against the second promoted team. And that's back to that pressure again that Robbie was talking about. So it's an interesting weekend.
Yeah. And Aberdeen host Dundee on Sunday as well. Having scored now, Robbie, for the first time in over 580 minutes, it's funny that we look at the positives in what was yet another defeat, but but Aberdeen looked like a team that in parts last night, let's not overblow it, they looked like a team that had finally gelled.
They did actually, and I thought that obviously he tweaked the formation a wee bit. They were a bit more defensive. They looked a bit more solid. I think that the key for the game at the weekend on Sunday for them against Dundee will be, can they start the game well? Can they get that momentum that they've built, even though it was a defeat, the performance and the way scoring the goals, and it looked from the TV that Pittodrie was rocking, as we know it can get. Can they do that again on Sunday against Dundee, which will be the difficult part? And also expectation levels. When they were going into the game last night, I felt a wee bit they were on a really difficult run. Fans were expecting them to go and potentially have a poor performance and get beat. When they put in that type of performance, although they didn't win the game, I think it was the fans weren't expecting it as much. But the game on Sunday, the expectation is to go there. I would be surprised if he plays the 5-4-1 system again, because he's going to have to dominate possession and create more chances. So it goes back to, do you stick to what's worked last night, or do you change back to what you were doing before the 4-2-3-1, and trying to go and win the game? So I think that's, out the three games, I think that's a really interesting one, because I think Dundee will fancy themselves going up there after Aberdeen have had a tough game last night, and knowing that there's pressure there.
Those are the three games on Sunday with the European teams involved. The standout fixture comes tomorrow, and it's an Edinburgh derby at Tynecastle. Robbie, I'm going to come to you second, because I'm not sure that I could get a balanced view as the former Hearts manager for this one. So, Moira, Hearts top of the table, Hibs losing only one in their last 8 in the Edinburgh derby. This is set up for something that we might all look on and go, do you know what? We don't have a bad old game here in Scotland.
It's definitely a tasty one, that's for sure. It's going to be really, really interesting. Again, both teams are unbeaten in the league still, so that's, you would imagine, something might give there. I'm not sure this is going to end a draw. I'm probably going to regret that tomorrow, but I think we've had quite a number of draws recently, but I think this one, is going to be a full throttle. I think people are looking for it. I think both sides are kind of looking to put down a marker. Hearts continue to just prove that they're happy and comfortable where they are at the moment. Hibs want to remind them that actually maybe they won't have it all their own way and try and find victories there instead of the draws that they've been picking up. That's what's been so costly for them. So I think Dave Gray's maybe hoping this will be the game that ignites the little extra inside the Hibs team to try and get the victory that they've been chasing. So it's going to be interesting. And again, the fact that it's at Tynecastle, normally that would be, you'd say, yeah, that gives Hearts an absolute advantage. As you say, the last wee while it hasn't been. The last team that won there was Robbie's team back in 23. For a Hearts team to do that and not do that in the interim is quite surprising, that there's not been Hearts victories at home in a derby. So it's all lined up to be a really tasty afternoon, actually.
And the carrot heart, Robbie, for Hearts is that if they were to win tomorrow, they'd go 5 clear at the top, with Celtic only playing on Sunday.
Yeah, I think it's a massive game from both clubs' perspective, but I think especially from Hearts, because they get that opportunity to go 5 clear of Celtic, but also well clear of Rangers, and starting to put massive pressure on both these clubs that they have to go into their games on Sunday and they have to win. But from a football perspective, I'm really looking forward to this game. I think I hope it will be a top game. I think that the way the Old Firm games are at the moment, with the restriction on the fans coming in, I think the Dundee derby and the Edinburgh derby is the games to go and watch, and especially to go and be at the stadium, because the atmosphere and intensity is absolutely phenomenal. I think tomorrow will be a real barnstormer, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Robbie, the last time we had you on, I think the young people speak about you going viral on social media when you were telling us about your go-karting escapades with Craig Gordon. So give us something that puts Robbie Neilson viral once again in social media about your favourite memory of the Edinburgh derby. Something juicy for our social media team to cut up.
You put me on the spot in that one. I think, to be honest with you, just any victory at all. And I think the atmosphere, especially if you can go to an away ground, Easter Road, and get a result, is massive for the fan base.
What's better, winning at home or winning away in the Edinburgh derby?
To be honest, winning away is good, but I like winning at Tynecastle, because I think you get that atmosphere after the game and the place is rocking. And I think that, I probably prefer a home win, to be honest. But yeah, there's been some memories over the years, obviously, as a player and as a manager. But I can't think of anything off the top of my head, to be honest. But I do think the game on tomorrow will be top level. I think like both teams have got goals in them. They've both got good strikers. And obviously Bowie and Shanklin are doing well for both teams, but they've also got a lot of creative players, and they've both got a lot of options from the bench. So I can see the game twisting and turning as we go along. I don't see anybody really dominating it.
Robbie, just quickly while I have you, and I'm going to put you on the spot again, so forgive me once more. As a former Hearts manager and a former Hearts player, is there a sense of jealousy at what Derek McInnes has at his disposal now, as somebody who is sharing the same seat in the dugout that you had, but also as a player, that in that Hearts squad there must be a sense of belief that you maybe didn't have when the strength of the squad going into a long, hard campaign?
No, I'm absolutely delighted for Derek that he's got the players at his disposal at that. But I think the key will be, I've had it previously when we came up, we won 5 in a bounce. I had it as a player when we won the first, I think, 8 or 10 games. The key will be, can you consistently do it? Can you get into November, December, January, February? That's when the real title challenge will come or go. And I think when you look at Hearts' bench at the moment, I think they've got real strength in it. I think between Rangers, Celtic and Hearts, I think they're the 3 clear teams that are quite far ahead. And I think if they can continue to eat away and get a little bit more of a lead, it comes to a point where, at the moment, if they get the game of the weekend, they go, I think, maybe 9, 10 clear of Rangers. That's a lot of points. And it then becomes that Rangers are relying on opposition or other teams to beat Hearts. So I think, from a Hearts perspective, obviously, been associated with the club for a long time. It's great to see them do well. I just want to see if they can do it over a consistent period, which has always been the difficulty of non-Old Firm teams.
What you're saying, Robbie, is that for any editors listening, particularly in the BBC, that even if Hearts win this weekend, we don't rush out an emergency podcast about Hearts being title challengers. I seem to recall this time last year, Aberdeen, the podcast.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that one up, Phil. Yes, I know. It was the first title since '85.
I know.
So look, they're in a brilliant position. I think tomorrow will be a big statement, to be honest. Can they win that and go so far ahead? But can we do it consistently? And I'm sure Derek, knowing well, that he will be just dampening things down. Externally, I'm pretty sure internally he'll be ramping up as much as he can.
And Robbie, fair play to you, because you've done that with a poker face on, and you've not given in to my temptation of suggesting that you didn't have millions to spend, but now Derek McInnes appears to do, and you're not jealous. So well done to you.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks.
Moira, quickly, the last 2 games that we're to look at. Livingston, they head to Tannadice to take on Dundee United. Looking at the table again, Dundee United, a win for them leapfrogs them into 3rd potentially.
That's it. And they'll be smarting after last week's defeat. So that's going to be one that's interesting. Again, we talk about, teams doing consistently or how they bounce back from a defeat. That's the key thing. There's always going to be, for the teams out with the very top ones, you're going to pick up defeats. So it's how you bounce back from that. And I think Dundee United have had a good start to the season, that haven't had that defeat, that maybe surprised a few people last week. How they bounce back from that this week will be telling.
And I mentioned that they could go 3rd. Of course, currently holding that position is St Mirren. They're up against Kilmarnock. We tripped down the M77 for them. How do you see that one going?
Yeah, I think look, obviously St Mirren are doing fantastically well this season, and I think Stevens kind of under the radar a wee bit, the way everyone else has been. Rangers, Celtic, Aberdeen. Hearts as well. And I think you look at the way they've played, this is a fantastic opportunity for them. I think it'll be a tough game down at Kilmarnock, obviously on the AstroTurf, but also Killie are a little bit, under the radar as well. If they pick up the 3 points there, they go 10th and could potentially go 3rd, depending on the other results. So, another interesting game that's, both those games that we're speaking about, they are kind of under the radar, but it's teams that are doing very, very, very well. I think Jim has been outstanding the last couple of seasons since promotion, and he's taken on again this season. Recruitment-wise, brilliant, bringing in a striker, Dolchik. So, yeah, interesting games, but they're kind of been overshadowed a little bit by everything else that's going on in the mad world of Scottish football.
Yeah. A mad world where you've heard Robbie Neilson say, just hold on to those podcasts, hold on to those special newspaper editions that might be coming out if Hearts win this weekend. We're still only in October, just only in October as well. Listen, we're going to have to leave it there because the producer is once again screaming naughty words in my ear to wrap up. Moira Gordon, thank you very much indeed, football writer. Robbie Neilson, all things impartial for an Edinburgh derby this weekend. Thanks for joining us. Listen, keep an eye on the weather, of course. If anything changes by way of the matches, then we'll obviously let you know. The website's the best place for that. Keep across Radio Scotland as well. Remember, 2 new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast out every weekday. Bumper edition today, because you'll be able to get all the European reaction from last night, plus you'll be able to get a look ahead that we've done just now to the weekend's action. For now, though, I'm Phil Goodlad. Don't use an umbrella this weekend. It may lead to some embarrassment. Enjoy our beautiful game, and we'll speak again soon.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.